I think that CCM is kind of a home run derby. The difference between hitting the wall and going over the wall can be like inches. But in a home run derby, that's a failure. I have a 30-year career in music. I want more people to have access to that with more success, with less failure. In order to create, honestly, you have to access pain and insecurity and inadequacy. So much of this is about hearing people say honest things to you. And that's just hard for us.
Rejoice, for the light has come, and he is clothed in glory. Come alive, for the King is here. All the earth is responding.
So some of us have had the great joy of giving our lives to creativity and music. And today we have a music insider with us, who's been a writer, who's been an artist, who now owns a record label and multiple other things, their variances. Ross, what has been your biggest song out to date? And did you expect it to be as big as it was?
I've not really ever had like a smash hit that like another artist did and it like was a, K-Love hit or a CCLI top 10 or anything like that. The weird thing about my particular path is that my three biggest songs are songs I wrote either by myself for myself or that I wrote outside of the Nashville system. And then my version came out first and had its little viral kind of a moment. And then someone else or someone else's, lots of whatever, did something with it. And then it sort of pushed it more. So it would either be Things I'm Afraid Of, which is the most recent of these, Hallelujah for the Cross, which was a worship song I wrote with a friend in Texas named Todd Wright, and or Clear the Stage, which is this song of mine that's kind of like this song about worship that I wrote years ago that has been recorded a bunch. But none of those are like in the kind of zeitgeist. Like no people who will watch or hear this and think, oh, I think I know that song. It's not. I Can Only Imagine. It's not. Whatever. But those three songs have gone far and away. All three of those. When I get a pub statement, like a payout, those three are worth more money than everything under it, and than the 200 songs under them combined. Which is to say, not a ton of money, but those are just going to do better and have gone farther than the others. And there's a whole lesson in there about, why are the ones I wrote by myself for myself, and I wasn't trying to get, CCM success. Why did those work? Because I don't think that's actually the formula. It just happened to work that time. I think a lot of times you have to kind of play the game, and I just didn't those times, and it somehow worked. But I don't want to do that thing where I hate when people are like, the moment I quit trying is when it happened. That's not a good lesson. But in this situation, I wasn't trying with those three songs to do something. I just was trying to write something honest, and they happened to succeed, But I do think there's plenty of other examples of songs where you had to just like write for an artist and check a bunch of CCM boxes, or you're in a writer's room with people and you're just like trying to write a cool worship song and then it takes off. I think there's both of that. It's just for me, I've kind of realized my lane where I do the thing that's the best thing I do is this kind of honest, provocative, maybe uncomfortable language thing that I do. And that's those three songs, very much.
If you were to talk to my grandmother and explain the game that you just mentioned,
okay,
how would you explain the game to my grandmother?
This is probably a cliche. You have to like learn the rules and be aware of the rules and have enough sense to know when to bend them, right? This isn't exactly the answer to your question, but when I do mentoring with other songwriters, I say, you need to have a really, really humble heart about critique, and you need to listen to it all the time. And when you really, really feel like all the critique is wrong, just do what you think you should do, because it's so much better to fail knowing that you did what you wanted to do, and you can be like, okay, well, at least I know, versus you followed all the rules and then failed, and you're like, I should have done what I wanted, you know? But the critics are often right. That's the point. You know, A&R is there. For those who don't know, A&R is, you know, artists and repertoire, and it's just the people at a label who tell you, yes, this song is the hit. Yes, this one's not, whatever. It's there for a reason. We need critique, right? And I would probably tell your grandmother, depending on what exactly she wanted to know about this business, I would say, you have to be willing to do things that are just utilitarian, functional songwriting that are not like passionate for you and are not like fulfilling. You're just doing a job like a regular person does a job. And you got to be honest enough and self-aware enough and, I don't know, free enough to push against that, to find out if you are an innovator or not, right? Because that's how those people always win, right? Is they're like, well, everyone told me to do this and I did this, and then they succeeded. But that's just the success stories. A lot of stories are, everyone told me to do this and I did it and it worked, you know? And I think that's the balance, right? Is finding out. You were talking about earlier before we started recording that you're a contrarian, and the hard thing about being a contrarian, because I can be one too, is the majority isn't always wrong, right? I mean, we can be like, they're just, you know, following the trend or whatever, and yeah, but occasionally that's because that's what people like, and you know, that's what moves people. And I think if we're too busy pushing against the rules to innovate, we kind of get real sort of pretentious and disconnected from regular people.
You are one of the people that I know who get to travel this little space called creativity for a living. And you've been a songwriter for forever. And you've had some ranging success, right?
Yeah.
You've had songs that artists have recorded that have done well. And then you have some other songs that you're like, man, it was a great song, but it didn't go as far as I wanted it to go.
Sure. Yeah. A lot more of that.
Where did you start learning music? Where did this entry for music and creativity enter your life?
Yeah. As a kid, I always liked writing, like writing, you know, like creative writing and stuff. And so I was really interested in things like poetry and funny stories. And, you know, I would have probably guessed I was going to be a writer as a kid. But when I was 15 or 16, a friend of mine introduced me to drums, and I just started kind of messing with playing the drums. And then I ended up buying a drum set and started playing drums in a band. And that band started writing our own music. And I remember thinking they were writing like really cool, like alt, like this was the 80s. So it's like The Cure, early U2, stuff like that. And I'm wanting to write like Chicago Richard Marx, you know, I'm wanting to write like pop music, and they're wanting to write like cool music. But we wrote music as a band and recorded some, and I just got the bug pretty quickly. And I was a drummer, so I didn't, you know, I'd taken piano lessons as a kid, but I was terrible at it, and it never stuck with the lessons, and never liked the kind of mathematical lines and columns part of music. I just liked, you know, this sort of fully right-brained kind of part of it. So I once I kind of got that bug as a teenager, I sort of dove into learning instruments that would allow me to write easier than drums. So I started playing piano some, and, you know, I'm not very good at piano, but I just used it as a tool, and then got into guitar pretty quickly after that. So yeah, it was just a slow process of taking my love for making something and realizing, okay, well, the best place for me to do that is writing songs, and people seem to kind of like them. At the time, I was, you know, we'd play them at a party or something, or put out a tape, and people would listen to it. And I really enjoyed that process of seeing music get made and thinking, I did that, you know, this was nothing and now it's something, you know.
As an outsider, some of us might look at music and think, man, it'd be a fun, exciting career, something to chased down for a season or seasons of my life.
Yeah.
Since you're one of the people that have taken that risk, what assumptions might you have walked into this with that you found not to be true or just different than you expected?
Well, first, when you say as an outsider, you don't mean you, right? You mean people who are listening?
I mean, people that are listening, not me.
Because I think that's part of my answer, is that I thought there would be kind of some sense of, okay, now I'm in and I'm doing it and it feels different and it means something, And one of the strange things about at least my journey, there are people who get into music and immediately or pretty quickly cross over into, they're paying all their bills, they have a wide following, they're getting a record deal, money's being thrown at them. That happens. But, this is Nashville. The vast, vast, vast majority of music makers within a mile of this place we're in, and there's a lot, don't have that story. They have a story that's like, they just grind and they do a bunch of different things to make music. I mean, there are people within a mile of here who have written songs that would blow our minds. And we'd be like, that is so good. And the kind of naive person says, why isn't that on the radio or whatever, right? And it's not as simple as an amount of talent equals, success. A lot of people have read that Outliers book that's like 20 years old that Malcolm Gladwell wrote, but it's the premise of the book is that, Tiger Woods isn't just good at golf. There's a bunch of things that happened to get him there, right? And so the whole book is studies on like how people achieve success. And there's all kinds of weird factors like timelines and where you were born and where you went to school and who your dad's friend was and whatever. And I think I just didn't know that stuff. Like I am now 30 years into a job where music is my job. And I've done so many different things to make the bills. I mean, almost everything you can imagine in a music making world, I've done it, and some of that's because some of that's some of my own choices, flaws in how I've done this, but a lot of it's just that you have to do that unless you kind of blow up and sort of like have like a go viral and it stays viral thing. You just got to do a whole lot of things. And, yeah, I mean, I think the myth of the big break maybe is it, that exists, but it's like some crazy decimal point percentage of music makers have that. Most of us just do a bunch of things a lot of times and find some rhythm of creativity and work.
What would you say are the bunch of things? Because you've said it several times. You've said a bunch of things. And
okay,
I've known you for a while. I can picture maybe 2 or 3 of those potential things. But what's the short list in your mind?
So on any given month, the way my bills get paid is royalties from past songs that I have written. And those could be worship songs. Those could be CCM songs. Those could be sync songs. Those could be something in another category, indie, something or other, right? But there's a pile of royalties that come in, and it's literally hundreds and hundreds of tiny, tiny amounts of money, and a half dozen bigger than that, right? So I've been writing in lots of categories for lots of years. I've written jingles before. I've done that kind of like commercial, like contract work. I've made demos on things like Fiverr and Air Gigs. I've produced records, though I'm not anywhere near in Nashville. I'm not like a producer. I mean, back in Texas, I was a producer because, big fish in a small pond. I've done gigs where I've made my own music where Ross King is the artist. I've sold and streamed music from that. I do gigs from that. I have led worship. I have made worship albums with different ministries and churches. I've coached other songwriters, mentors. I've been a mentor to songwriters, and I've done songwriting lessons. I've guest spoken at some kind of TED Talky kind of thing where I'm talking about songwriting. I've been adjunct professor in a couple of different educational settings where I taught songwriting. I mean, I'm sure I'm forgetting some stuff, right? But that's all of that could happen at any time, right? And in the last month, I've done a bunch of those things, right? So that, and to me, I just I like that it's that many things. I don't love all those things.
Sure.
I sure don't love all of them equally. But to me, the idea that this career path has trained me to do a bunch of those kinds of things is kind of fun for me. Oh, and I have I own a little record label, so I'm kind of doing A&R. I'm kind of, and that's a very small thing, but it pays my bills too. And so, there's just so many, once you get into creativity, and I'm going to make stuff, help people make stuff, be a part of conversations about making stuff, there's just a lot of worlds that leads you into.
Oh, and all are welcome in his family. There is room. There is room.
How did you choose to go from writing for other people to actually releasing your own music again and focusing more on Ross King, the artist?
Sure. Yeah. Unfortunately, it was failure. I mean, anybody in the music business who's had any time in the music business knows this truth, that failure is a better teacher than success. And I signed up, I was first an independent singer-songwriter writing music for me. That's what I was doing. I got a little bit into music for other people when I started writing worship and putting out worship. And I was a part of a ministry that was kind of had a little bit more reach. And we were putting out worship, but it was getting used by people. So I was getting suddenly I was getting CCLI checks or whatever. And so that kind of got me oh, you can write for other people. And so that started happening maybe 20 years ago. And then I got a little bit of success in that world, a very small amount of success in that world. And I signed a pub deal. And then I started waiting for I got a pub deal now. I'm going to be a rich songwriter, whatever. And I was waiting for that to happen, and it wasn't. And my publisher at the time was a guy named Mark Nicholas, great guy, great publisher, great man. He said, you may have to just make your own demos and get your own cuts for you first. And because I was kind of like, oh, cool, I'm a songwriter now. I'm a staff songwriter. I don't have to be an artist anymore. I can get off the road and, be done trying to, there's like a joke that when you're an artist, you got to be skinny and cool and relevant. And when you're a writer, you can just be whoever, and I liked that idea. And so, but I wasn't succeeding I wasn't getting any, or I was getting cuts, but they weren't making any money. That's kind of my story, is that I have a lot of cuts that don't make much money. My volume is very high in getting cuts, but my success is, it's the kind of thing where if you read my bio, you'll see all these names and I've never heard any of his songs, and all these people cut his, So anyway, so I wasn't getting any money. And so he said, you should release more of your music that you're trying to get cut, but you should release that stuff. So I just started putting out music that I didn't think was for me, and maybe kind of altering it. Some of it I was rewriting to be well, I wrote this for so-and-so, they didn't cut it, I'm going to rewrite it for me. So I started putting out my music again, and it just started doing better than it had been doing. And so I was like, okay, all this writing for other people has taught me how to write better, has taught me how to write more commercially. What if I was to take those skills and apply them to my kind of niche, singer-songwriter stuff? Could I increase the mass appeal of what I do while also continuing to speak to these very specific singer-songwriter things? So that's become a model for me, is how do I balance saying the difficult or less commercial thing with a package it in such a way that maybe it's more digestible, So the super overgeneralized way of saying it would be, I write a chorus that everybody can can relate to, and I fill the verses with all kinds of stuff that maybe is, more specific, more harder to digest.
Imagine you're talking to a group of like intermediate writers. Like
Okay.
they're not in the beginning. They haven't
Yeah.
written I Can Only Imagine yet. They're somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
If you could talk to a group of those people and challenge them with like 2 or 3 things to try out or to implement, what would you say?
Get as much honest critique as you can from people who both know how to critique music and people who don't. So meaning like get regular people, because that's listeners, to critique your music, and get professionals, and try to get a healthy balance of that, because both have pros and cons. Collaborate as much as you can, and take notes on when collaborations work and why. And then try to find out if you have a thing that always is your thing. You know what I mean? So let me explain that. So I get probably, if people do know about me as a writer and say, what does Ross do? From a distance, they'd probably all say lyrics. But those who've worked with me, I found out, I didn't know this, but I found out those who worked with me I realized say, he has lots of ideas. That's kind of my thing in a write, is he has lots of ideas. I am a lyric guy, but I think the thing that would be the most unique thing is that I don't like going with a precious idea and then get mad if you don't like it. I just have a pile, and I can pivot pretty easily in a room to like, okay, that idea is not your favorite. Okay, how about this? So once I learned that was my thing, or it was a thing people were saying, I leaned in, And then finally, I would say, find out if you have a thing that's a negative, which a lot of us don't want to hear and don't want to even think about. But, what do people say about Ross? That's not great. And I learned some of that too. And some of that early on was like, well, he can be all business, because I was so tired of going into rooms and having someone say, let's just write a great song. And I was thinking, yeah, but your A&R called me before this, right, and told me that you need a single. So what do I do now? Because you want to just write a great song, and you think I'm the guy to write the sort of wacky, unexpected thing, and I know that's not what they want. So suddenly I'm like kind of negative in the room, and so it looks like I'm like selling out. So I found out at some point, oh, Ross gets he kind of ruins rooms by being too like, we can't write that. Nobody wants to hear that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Which is me being like pragmatic. So learn what those things are about you, and you learn all that stuff from critique, from collaboration, from honest conversations. And so I just think, look, this is not going to be a shock to anyone who has any experience in life or the church. Community matters. And the level to which you avail yourself to both the comforting and sharpening parts of community is the level to which you're going to grow and be valuable to the community, right? And so I would say, if you do it all by yourself, just be careful that you don't, miss the chance to be rightly critiqued or collaborated with, and if you feel like, oh, all I do is this, great, bring that thing. That's, the eye can't say to the hand, I don't need you. Not all parts of the body are hands or eyes or whatever, right? So, collaboration, critique, self-awareness.
We will run to you, Lord. We will run to you, Lord.
We have a varying relationship with the local church, right? We believe it was God's idea, and we believe in God's people. But then there's this box called worship, and then there's this box called CCM. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, regardless if we're consciously aware of it or not, we might take the approach of, this is all Christian music,
Right.
but it might be at best 2%.
Mm-hmm.
How did you find your lane? How are you finding your lane?
I mean, somewhere between what pays the bills and what makes you the happiest to put your head on the pillow at night. I don't know. There are seasons. You asked earlier about the different things someone does to make a living in this job and different things I have done. I mean, there are seasons when what I'm doing is not at all passionate for me. It's just I'm good at this. You know what I mean? I mean, I have this metaphor that I talk about. I say, you're a doctor. If you have a general practitioner during flu season right now, your doctor's suggesting and giving lots and lots of flu shots. Well, we could probably learn to do that. You and me, we could give a flu shot probably, right? But in that moment, the doctor's uniquely sort of certified and sort of recognized as the person who does it. And he's good at it and he can make good money. But no part of him goes home after a day of giving 30 or 40 flu shots and thinks, man, I made the world a better place today and I'm really fulfilled. Probably not, right? Just stuck people with needles. I guess I prevented some flu, whatever. I think we have to have flu shots in our work ethic. You have to have things that you're like, I can do this. I'm good at it. Probably someone else could do it too if I showed them how, but I can't. Like something like editing or something, right? I know people who get paid by producers to like edit vocals. There's nothing sexy or fun about that. It's just like, there's nothing world changing. It matters to the process a lot, but it's not like brag worthy. And it wasn't their dream, right? But sometimes you have to do that. And I think that's okay. I think that's good for us. I think there's a privileged thing about being creatives that we're like, I deserve to be able to just like, sit in writers' rooms and make money creating. And that's not the real world in any way at all, So I think it's okay that we have certain things that we have to do that are not like fun or fulfilling or world changing in any sort of like creative way. They're just serving a function that's sort of tangentially related to what we are good at. Last week I forgot I had an account on Air Gigs. Back when I was broke, I did an Air Gigs account, and I forgot I had it. I just forgot. And a guy asked me, "Can you do a vocal can you do an acoustic demo of this song that I wrote?" And I was like, "Well, my wife's got cancer, and I'm too busy to go. I don't want to go on gigs, and I'm sure it's a couple $100. I'll, And I did it, and there was nothing like super fulfilling about it. He loved it. I blessed that guy. He was happy with it, but it wasn't at all what I like trained for or dreamed about, or it just was serving a function. And I think that's part of this thing, is that you've got to be ready to just do stuff that's functional, utilitarian, right? Knowing that also trains you. I got better at producing that day. I got better at tracking that day, whatever, right? Because I did this thing for this, and I blessed this person who couldn't do it. Mm-hmm. They couldn't have given themselves that flu shot that day. And I was able to. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Are there things that you wish that we sung about or through as a corporate local church that have yet to be sung or written in a way that allows access for us to come together and sing about them? And if so, what would those things be?
Okay, so yes, I do, but I have a lot of grace for this, because I think one of the struggles of this whole, like, we should be more honest in our worship music, because I agree with that. And we're, that we're missing elements of lament or whatever. One of the struggles is that the church isn't super like open-ended, all are welcome. You show up, you have no clue who else is there, what they're going through. And I do think that we're trying to aggregate in those moments the most, what could we all sing easiest, right? And if you throw in like very specific, painful things into that mix, you are asking a bunch of folks who came in fine to suddenly go into a place of sharing grief, sharing pain, maybe even triggering something about their life. And I think that's what the church is for, right? Like one part suffers, all parts suffer together. One part is honored, all parts rejoice. But the church gathering isn't really that. Like the mass church gathering isn't like, hey, that guy over there is going through something and I'm fully sharing it. That's not in a room full of 300 people or however. You can't do that. So I think there's a struggle to find the most universal but still meaningful things to say. Having said that, I'm currently writing just as I'm starting to learn to write. I didn't write, I've been in this thing with my wife's cancer for 13 weeks. And I didn't write about it at all until about a week ago. And what I'm writing about now, and it's not congregational so far, is kind of tied to, we should stop saying God moves every mountain, because he doesn't. So be careful when you get in front of people and say, God's going to always do this thing. Because people in the room have been asking God to do that thing for a long time. And maybe even he literally didn't. The person died, the thing broke, the marriage fell apart, the prodigal child never came back. So we got to be careful about like these sort of like sweeping things. Last week at our church, they sing this version of God is so good, which maybe is I don't keep up with what's hot. Maybe I don't know if it's a worship popular song, but is that old God is so good? Is that a thing that's out?
They redid it.
Okay. And it's great. It's really great. I loved like melodically, there was just so much going on, but I'm sitting next to a wife with a dire, serious cancer diagnosis that has not gone away, and I'm medicated for depression, and so is she. It's things aren't going that great, and I kind of want to be like, okay, yes, exactly. Besides him saving me, which is really good, how else? Which I know is really childish and really selfish. I'm just saying that's where I am, right? And I do think I do wish we were better at dealing with, taking sweeping statements and just being careful. I remember the first time I ever led Firm Foundation, the Cody Carnes song, which I love. It has this, structurally, as a writer, it has this moment that bothers me where it says, Christ is my firm foundation, the rock on which I stand. When everything around me shaking, I've never been more glad. Pause, that I put my faith in Jesus. Okay, well, it sounds like he says, when everything's shaking, I've never been more glad, period. And I had to kind of, the church staff was like, hey, can you explain this song before you lead it? Because that doesn't sound quite right. Mm-hmm. I'm like, well, it's the middle of a sentence. Like, yeah, but there's like 5 seconds there between. That sounds just like when everything's shaking, I've never been so happy. Well, that's weird. Mm-hmm. No, that's super weird. And that's kind of insulting to someone whose life sucks. And you're like, well, I don't know about you, man, but when everything's shaking, I've never been happier. That's weird. Like, that sounds like we're crazy. So I think there's things like that. And I'm a huge fan of Cody's music. I mean, he's probably my favorite single writer artist in that space. So I love that song. But I wish someone had, in the writing of that, been like, hey, hold on, there's a huge space there that sounds like this. Because there's just a moment of like this uppity, I'm a person who is unfazed by trauma. And if we're not careful, that just feeds into this sort of like stereotype of the kind of folks who get on stage at a church are unfazed by trauma and are always joyful. The rest of you who can't access that, who aren't able to do that, you are less than, And so I think that kind of stuff.
Or the people that can do that are just in denial that trauma is happening.
Well, sure, there's that,
and that's also not healthy.
And so I think maybe I'm taking a while to answer your question, but to me, a part of this is less about the songs and more about contextualizing stuff. I do understand why people make fun of the worship leader who won't quit talking, because a lot of them just don't have anything to say. But I think there's a problem that we don't contextualize stuff enough. Like, I wish more often worship leaders said before and after a song in a really relatable, honest way, not performative, just being themselves. Hey, this song's hard for me to sing. Guys, we're going to sing it. And kind of in the ideal today. I don't know if I fully buy into this idea right now, but I'm trying to like speak to my own soul here and like encourage myself to that place. And I'm trying to like say, the more I say it, maybe the more it becomes true. And you know, that I wish we were better at that. It's probably, to me, I'm not the guy that's like picking on lyrics of songs all that much. It's more that I'm like, I wish we were better at making this less of a show where it's just some songs done well and some talking done well, and more of a, hey, we're all in this room together sharing an experience, and here's a very non-performative, vulnerable thing that will help everybody feel in it. Mm-hmm. And when I lead worship, that's, or somewhat earlier about like, what's your thing? My thing in leading worship is not best singer, best player, any of that. My thing is I'm pretty good at that. I just like talking. Like I don't have a preacher voice. I just talk like this, and I tell what I feel about the thing. And that means I don't always get a lot of worship gigs because occasionally it's just a little too, naked or whatever.
I'm not at all saying that you put yourself in this place. So I'm not saying that you put yourself above anyone else. It's not what I'm saying. But I believe in crowdsourcing information, and I believe in crowdsourced learning, which means we can all elevate if we get the right things.
Sure.
In some context back home, we have some really massive churches with tight schedules, which means that you're actually not allowed, or allotted rather, the time to even speak to contextualize. You mentioned that sometimes people just ramble and don't have the right things to say, right? So if we were to journey down this path of contextualizing things and crowdsourced learning, how would you help these worship leaders gain the trust at these bigger churches to give me 30 seconds, a minute and a half to contextualize? And how would you also coach up these other worship leaders who do have time, but haven't really gotten the right message yet? What would you say to this crowd to help them?
If you've been hired to lead worship and they don't trust you to talk, you're not gonna ever. I don't take jobs where they don't. Unless I just got to get paid. I'm not gonna like put myself in a position where I'm literally not allowed to be kind of me. Now that's not like a dare. Like, hey guys, here I am. I'm saying like I have an issue with the fact that it's more important to grow a church than it is to do these things. That's I don't go to churches like that anymore. And I got fired from ministries like that because I didn't know how to do that. Like if your time cues are so important that like an honest moment of response or expression or whatever is consistently shut down, I don't want to. It's not that to me. That doesn't feel like the kingdom. And so I would probably be a person who isn't like anti-megachurch, but I would always say, I'll put it like this. Let's say you and I were to agree that in a perfect world, worship leaders should always have that freedom. And we found a context where someone said, at our size, that can never happen. I would say, then you are the wrong size. Because if I can't achieve the perfect thing, if the perfect thing is off limits because of another factor that's not a factor I can totally justify biblically, because by the way, you can't justify biblically growth. I mean, Jesus he feeds 5,000 people with a sack lunch and then says, you guys should eat my flesh and drink my blood. And they all leave. Well, that was a horrible moment of church growth. Terrible. He blew it. Right? So much so that he worried his guys didn't want to be. He's like, guys, do you want to leave too? They're like, well, where are we going to go? It's a really strange moment, but it's weird for us to be like, well, in order to be this big, we got to have these things. Well, if there's something in that list of things that keeps you from being who clearly we all agree we should be, I think your answer is kind of obvious. You can't prioritize growth in that moment, right? And I get that that's like easy for you to say, Ross, you're not a big deal. Whatever. I was a part of the largest college Bible study in the history of the world for 5 years. Breakaway Ministries at Texas A&M. At the time was running 7,000 college students in a basketball gym. I was the worship leader for that for 5 years. And I mean, I'm just telling you that like growth will always push out the need to grow, the need to have cues, the need to have like time constraints, the need to have predictability will always push out any kind of like responsive spontaneity. And I'm not even saying spontaneity is king. I'm saying if you say we cannot do a thing and that thing we know is kind of a good thing, that's an impact, you know? So I would say be careful where you get hired, and when you get hired, ask, what can I not do? Who can get me fired and why? And what are normal things that you want to make sure I know I might think are normal that you're going to say, no, not, but not here. You know, like someone might say, we got to do a hymn every service. Okay. I didn't know that. Okay. That's helpful. You know, whatever. That's a thing that you hear, you know, find out that stuff, find out what they want, find out what they do not want, find out what they trust. And then make sure you're okay with that. And you may need to make money. You may need to pay the bills and like, okay, I don't like that, but I want to pay the bills. I just don't take those jobs. And I'm not rich. I have had financial problems in my life because I don't take jobs like that because I probably prioritize autonomy over a lot of other things. I'm way too principled, obviously. But so that's the first part of your question. The second part, if I can remember, is just again, practice talking in front of people and then ask people, how did I do? And if you consistently get not good, that may not be your thing, you know? Or you may get not good in this context. Okay, that may not be your best context. Again, I have the places that want Ross King to do his thing, worship-wise or concert-wise, that's a narrow group of people, and they like it a lot. Other places don't have any interest in that, and that's okay. Like, we got to quit thinking that everything is about getting the most people to like us the most. You know, you have a tribe, you have a thing you do. There's probably somebody who really likes that thing. Do that for those people. They'll be crazy about it. And when the people that like my concert, that like my worship leading, like it a lot.
So how did you find that group of people?
I mean,
and how did you sustain them?
You just do it for a while. This is a terribly unhelpful answer, but you just got to do it for a while. And you got to figure out if you know what you have to like, again, it's so much of this is about hearing people say honest things to you. And that's just hard for us. I mean, look, if you handed me your song catalog and I said, show me your favorite 5, and I just like critiqued them, if I totally disagreed with your favorite 5 versus whatever else, and you'd spend a lot of time deciding that was your favorite 5, you have to figure out, do I want to listen to Ross or do I want to listen to me? And I think that's so much of our like becoming who we are as servants and as useful creatives, .com, you know, it's finding that is so much about hearing hard and encouraging things from people and being people who don't reject compliments, who really receive them and don't be like, oh, it's all God, you know, and being a person who's like, oh man, that's hard to hear, but I've heard it 3 times now. Right. We're just so nobody gets me about it. You know, nobody gets me. And it's like, hey, if nobody gets you, you're not gettable. Something's off, you know, and I think we have to be more open to, I've gotten this critique numerous times. I've tried this song. I know it's great. Nobody likes it. Might not be great. You know, that's the thing. Like, and I think that's a lot of us finding our thing is that when I write songs fully free to be me, there are moments in the middle of that writing process where I know, okay, if I keep going down this path, I'm going to lose some people. Do I want to do that or do I want to get more people? You know, it depends on the day and depends on the song, right? And even things like I have to work harder to make that chorus melodically hooky because what I'm saying is so hard or something, right? We are learning what our best chance of success is, you know, using these skills and gifts. And sometimes I'm fully being me, and it's all my preferences boxes are being checked, and I'm so happy I'm doing exactly what I want to do. And other times I'm not, but it's serving people. Does that make sense? Like, and so I think you just have to be open, and not just open, but like actively looking for people to like tell you the truth about yourself, which is really hard, you know? And I'll say this, if you're succeeding now, you'll probably never do that. If you're already killing it, you're not going to ask, what am I doing wrong? Everyone's telling you that you're doing right. I mean, there's no reason for Brandon Lake to ask what he's doing wrong. And I would just be, if I was his buddy, I'd be like, hey, Brandon, just be careful. No one's going to tell you the truth about what you're doing wrong because you're killing it. You know?
You said fully free to be me.
Mm-hmm.
For some of us, maybe not all of us, but for some of us, there's a journey that takes place to get to that state of being.
Yeah.
What did you encounter along the journey?
I just don't think it's possible for me to overstate the level of failure that I have experienced. And I don't mean that as like a pity. I'm saying I've just not succeeded a lot. And that just teaches you things. And you'll either give up, get bitter. Well, I shouldn't even say either, because it's a spectrum. You will be tempted to give up, and you might. You'll be tempted to get better, and you might. You'll be tempted to listen, and you should. Failure is just like winning all the time is not great for you. And for me, learning to be me was, okay, I hurt that person's feelings. I blew that opportunity. I took over that meeting with my personality. I shut down that person. They didn't think they could talk freely because I walked in the room, telling some story, like I did here today. Like, I don't want to be a person who isn't safe. And I think people find out who they are, at least in community, they do, when they feel safe to be who they are, right? To kind of fail. And so I just think we have to, part of why I picked on the whole like mega church performative perfection thing is that it's not a place where people feel like they can fail. And I always say, like, what's the best moments on SNL? When they laugh. Well, that's not part of the thing. That's a mistake. But there's like mashups. There's like supercuts. You can find 50 right now. All the times that Jimmy Fallon laughed through a skit. All the times that Bill Hader or Kristen Wiig laughed through a skit. That's like, people like that, right? Church hasn't figured that out yet. We've somehow missed that messing up. And that's a cute kind of messing up. But I'm saying, like, our favorite moments are, guys, I went to a show with this person and they broke down and they just kind of went off script. And they noticed a person in the audience. I mean, I was at a concert with, Thomas Rhett, and somebody had a panic attack on the front row, and he stopped the concert and got the EMTs to come. Why would I watch that? That's not him performing. Why is that interesting to me? I think we're so bad at like creating space for like helpful failure in our gatherings. We've bought some weird lie that it's got to be slick and put together, and that's nobody. I mean, if Gen Z ought to be teaching us anything, it's that there's no more rock stars, there's no more celebrities. We want our people to actually fail and fart and burp and screw up and stub their toes and cuss. We want that. We want to see that. But Sunday mornings just haven't caught up to that, at least not in the big church. Part of why I'm being this way today is because I'm exhausted from the life I'm living, and I don't have energy to pretend. That will cost you something, because being who everybody wants you to be will always grease the wheels and make things a little simpler for you. And if you can pull that off for your whole life, I guess go for it. I am exhausted from trying to pretend. And that does mean occasionally I'm probably saying an off-putting thing, or I come off as abrasive. I don't want to. I want to be lovable and fun and cuddly. But it's just, it's unsustainable for most of us to not be ourselves. So part of what I'm pushing for in that is that we got to stop making people think they have to be something. I don't mean like be yourself at the cost of other people's feelings or other people's whatever. I don't mean that. I don't mean like disregard how you are received in a room or who you're hurting or who you're impacting. I just mean, man, it's exhausting. It's really life sucking to be what they want me to be. Right? And again, that doesn't mean you're not serving people. You are serving, you are humbling, you are self-sacrificing. I just mean pretending, performing, whatever. Not only is it exhausting, they don't actually want it. Real people don't really want it. We know that. We're sure of that. That's why they're all mad about TikTok, because people are themselves.
You made me so complex, even when I'm a wreck. Oh God, you love me as I am.
How did you train your ears to hear and your heart to receive without all the weight of the negative thoughts that might come your way and the rejection that might come your way, to where you could actually take what you're hearing and processing and do something with it?
Repetition, failing a lot, and realizing, all right, if enough people say this, I can get mad about it, but I can also try to do what they said or listen to what they said and see what happens. And sometimes you do that and you're like, oh, that actually did work, you know? But I also think that we have to like learn to be the people who say, okay, I'll think about that. Okay, I'll consider that. You just have to be open to why someone is saying that, you know? And I don't know. You can write your own songs the way you want to write them for the rest of your life. And maybe that will be the reason why you do great. You know, you have these kind of like, I don't know, someone like a Bon Iver, where you're like, this guy probably doesn't care at all what we think. Maybe I'm just guessing, you know, or you know, I don't know, just pick somebody who's like an avant-garde, bleeding edge kind of a person. Sufjan Stevens. Does he care at all what we think? He must not, you know, because he's just going for it. You might succeed that way, but probably you'll have some combination of who you are with no collaboration, with no critique, with no help, with no guardrails, and who you are when you learn from all the critique and collaboration and guardrails and that kind of thing, right? That's life too, right? I mean, we can think a conversation style or a way of dressing or a way of being in a meeting is my favorite way, and you'll realize, oh, this bothers people. Okay, well, I have to figure out, do I want to change who I am and how I am in those moments? Because I just said be yourself, right? Do I want to kind of adjust that? Or do I just want to, I'm not going to be around those people anymore? You know, you have to figure out, you know, and I think that all this creativity stuff is choices. You have to like say, do I want in this moment to compromise a little bit of what I thought? How much of that is me selling out? How much of that is me just learning to be better at this? Because that's the balance, right? Is that we all started writing songs a certain way, and we got certain levels of critique, success, failure, whatever, and we decided either they don't get me, or we decided, oh, that's interesting. I should try that. It's just a series of that, you know. And I think you just can't let rejection crush you, but you can't ignore it. It matters, you know. And why did I fail is a question you should be asking, right? And if the answer is always because of them, you're not getting it, right? But everybody makes choices between, do I want to, or early in the process of me writing things that I'm afraid of, I had moments where I'd show it to somebody in the industry, and there were people who were like, oh, we should take this chorus to this artist. And I had a situation where there was a label that had kind of, because I was close to some of their people, had heard this chorus of the song when the song was still being written, and they thought it'd be a good song for somebody else. And I knew I needed to write about my depression in a super honest way, and that this was my favorite vehicle for that. And I thought, if I give it to this person, potentially it's going to make more money, reach more people, be on the radio, all that. If I keep it, it's more me. It tells the story I want to tell, probably won't do as well. Okay. So I made a choice. And look, that song did great. So that's an example of I chose the less popular path and it still worked. But usually that's not how it goes. Usually it's, the classic example would be you're at a retreat writing for your church. And you say, right now, if I say this line, it feels more authentic to our people and our community, our town, this time that we're in. But it has way less chance of being a CCLI hit. Okay, what do you want to do? Right?
Yeah.
And I think that kind of thing has to be central to like how we do all our creativity. Is like, okay, in this moment, do I want to succeed in a super laser point way and maybe lose the sort of broader possibility? Or do I want to pull back and include the most possible people, maybe lose some of that, some of that depth, but give more people a shot at getting it? Neither is a bad choice, right? You just have to be aware that that's part of how you grow, is that, if every single time you make the vanilla universal choice, or every single time you make the I got to go hard, I got to be choice, that'll impact your success, right? If you just do one all the time. And we know people who only go for the radio single, people who only go for the super smart, deep, artsy thing.
For sure.
And both work sometimes, but our favorite people are probably people who are somewhere in the middle of all that, who can adjust and pivot according to what maybe the moment deserves.
Speaking of pivoting, Ross, what song are you going to share today?
I'm going to share a song called Good Company that I wrote probably 10 years ago about sharing in the sort of in this category of sharing the fellowship of the suffering of Jesus, but also the idea that what we call weak moments often are moments that we can see Jesus. We can see similar moments in the life of Christ, in the actual earthly life of Christ, and that I found some great comfort in realizing, these are reactions or expressions I can see in the life of Christ that make me feel less crazy, that make me feel more understood.
If sadness was a sin, Jesus never would have cried. But that's exactly what he did when his good friend Lazarus died. And he knew that he could raise him up, and still the Lord was sad enough to grieve. If heartache was a crime, consider Jesus in the garden when he knew it was his time and there was no better option, and he had to take that cup, and it stressed him out so much it made him bleed. If you've ever been so overwhelmed that you can barely breathe, my friend, you're in good company. If anger is so wrong, how about Jesus in the temple? It doesn't sound like he was calm when he was knocking over tables, and we know his heart was perfect, so there must have been some purpose for it all. If you've ever gotten mad at all the brokenness you see, my friend, you're in good company. darkness, you are not alone. There is a presence that will not let you go. Every tear that you have cried, every trial that you have known, he's known it too. In the darkness, you are not alone. There is a presence that will not let you go. Every tear that you have cried, every trial that you have known, he's known it too. So if defending your own honor and fighting for your rights are really so important, how come Jesus gave his life to pay for our salvation? He let a bunch of fools portray him as a criminal. If you've ever been humiliated, misunderstood, ridiculed, and hated, if you've ever gone through hell and faced the devil no one else could even see, my friend, you're in good company. You're in good company. In the darkness, you are not alone. There is a presence that will not let you go. Every tear that you have cried, every trial that you have known, he's known too.
Ross, my friend, you have played several different roles as an artist, a songwriter. You write for Sync, you do a bunch of things, and now you've decided to start your own record label. Why did you do that? What's it about? What are you trying to accomplish?
Yeah. So for clarity, it's been about a year and a few months since I started this thing, but it's very small. Like I joke that it's in air quotes, record label, because it's just one artist so far, and it's not like we're trying to take over the world. For me, I realized that there's a lot of downsides to the streaming age for us who make money off music, but one of the upsides is that it's sort of like the Wild West in terms of anybody can do anything and monetize it if they get an audience. And the old what I would call the traditional or old model of the record label business is to throw a bunch of money at something to get it on the radio and to have a certain standards for its quality, for its delivery, its presentation, marketing, whatever, that had to be met, and then then success is, whatever, some amount of money gets cleared, but those models are so related to stuff that people don't care about anymore. There's so much music that is happening, so much media that's happening that is not pristine HD. Whatever. There's just a lot more like raw art. It's very normal to, to stream a record and to hear a song that they recorded with their phone, or that they recorded outside,
Sure.
or they recorded with one take. Like That's happening a lot. So I just started seeing that and thinking, CCM particularly, still just spends so much money with two primary focuses, K-Love and CCLI Success. And they gamble, in my opinion, by applying these standards to it, like sonically and like money-wise, that if they don't reach a really strong level of obvious success, which is defined by these very narrow things of it getting a lot of radio, K-Love primarily, and getting a lot of CCLI, meaning it's all over the zeitgeist, or whatever. That's the definition, and it's hardly anyone can get that definition because the spots that are open for that success are very, very small, limited. And I just started thinking, I see people all the time outside of Christian music, outside of traditional Christian music and outside of Christian music period, that succeed and never get on the radio. No one's ever, if there are 4 people in this room, then not everybody can see them, but if we all said, let's all name 10 artists that we're not sure the other people in the room know about who we like, all right? We'd all hear stuff that we've never heard of. A bunch of it would have like 5 million monthly listeners on Spotify.
Sure.
And we've never heard of it. And it's that amount of monthly listeners is a good living. And if they're indie or at a boutique kind of record label where the money that's being spent is lower, they're making good money. They're making better money than a marquee artist whose record flops, and so, and it's not about the money, but I'm just saying if money is the reason why we do these things,
sure.
I just thought, and there's the added benefit of when you do it the way I'm talking about, you don't have to worry about, would K-Love play it? Would all the churches sing it? You can find a niche. You can find a tribe. You can find a sort of like a specific cultural corner that you want to speak to. So I just decided, what if I could put smaller amounts of money behind artists who I knew I wasn't trying to get on K-Love or CCLI, but the smaller amounts of money on the front end gave us a better chance of getting a return and gave the artist more freedom to do what they really want to do and feel called to do. So that's a lot of that's theory, because I've just done this one artist 3 or 4 songs and it's been fine. She's done fine. She's not like killing it, but she's done fine. But we're having a blast and we're making our money back. I just think that particularly in the Christian space, there is a way of doing it, or I should say there are ways of doing it. And I don't, a lot of the rest of the music business doesn't adhere to those ways and does fine. I think that CCM is kind of a home run derby, like we're going to throw 10 pitches. How many can you get over the fence? And in a home run derby, hitting the wall is a failure. The difference between hitting the wall and going over the wall can be like inches. But in a home run derby, that's a failure. And I just don't understand that. As a person who writes lots of music at varying levels, I don't get the idea that if I don't get it at this level of very specific, narrow success, we lose we go bankrupt. I don't, that doesn't work for me. It makes no sense. And it's surely not a venue for creativity to thrive. Mm-hmm. So I am trying to, and I don't care enough about money. Like I don't mean that as like a God. I'm saying like, I should care more. I'm way more like creative, So I'm not looking to like get rich doing this. I'm looking to like create space for more Jesus following artists to be able to make music and not utterly, be lost doing it and not, I'm trying to make more access and maybe move the ship a little bit, move the way that Christian music is sort of doing its thing. So yeah, it's not like this isn't the beginning of a story where I'm running the world 6 months from now. This is the beginning of a story where I hopefully influence the culture.
For the record, everybody who runs the world in 6 months always says the same thing.
Of course, and all the best stories start like that. But I'm just saying that's not even really like in the back of my mind. I wouldn't even know what to do with that. Like I really am just saying, how do I make more people? Like, I have a 30-year career in music. I want more people to have access to that with more success, with less failure, skip the line that I stood in, I want more of that. And I just think also I want more people to have the kind of music that they want. Like if you get people to be honest about what's lacking in CCM, and you even referred to some of this with some of your questions, if you get people to be honest about what they think is lacking in Christian music, it's a pretty consistent critique. It's not honest enough. It's one size fits all. It's saying the same things over and over again. It's all about God loves me and God forgives me. It's, they'll say these similar things. And no, and that's why, like, for a while there, everyone was talking about depression in their songs because finally people realized, oh, we're supposed to talk about depression, So yeah, I just want more access for artists, and I want more fans and listeners to have their voices sort of to have something speak to them in the margins between the very homogenous sameness of a lot of Christian music that's successful.
So we have this thing called Wisdom's Corner.
Mm-hmm.
And
is this it, or am I in the corner?
I think we're close to it. And I'm curious of what words of wisdom you've either heard or encountered that really were life-changing for you along your way.
Yeah, I mean, I have this friend, and he when he hears that I say this sometimes when people ask me a question like this, he gets upset that I share this because it sounds like he was being mean. But years ago in college, so a long time ago, I was writing, and I started releasing songs and writing by myself. Nobody was gatekeeping. Nobody was, I was listening to critique. And I asked him, did you hear my songs that I put out this week? He was a worship leader, a friend of mine, kind of a mentor to me. Really respected him. Very, very critical thinker, reader, music critic, just a sharp guy. I said, did you listen to my songs? He said, yeah. I said, what'd you think? And he said, if you weren't my friend, I wouldn't pay for it. But it's not bad. And then he said, but I'm guessing a lot of really famous people early on made music that only their friends liked, right? And he was super sweet about it. And again, when he's heard me say this, he's like, I didn't, it wasn't that mean. I'm like, it helped me because it made me say, what do I got to do to write music that people want to hear, even if they don't have a clue who I am, right? And that's like the difference between making a living at it and not, literally, is if this is just my friends, then that's almost like Patreon or something, where I'm like, I have a group of people who are sort of benefactors. Okay, that's possible. Can work in a little small church, maybe, and that's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to like have your music reach wider, you have to know that what you're making is not being graded on anything but its actual merits as a song. You know what I mean? It can't be, well, let me tell you the backstory. Oh, okay. Well, if that's necessary, then the song isn't good enough, right? And I tell the backstory of my songs a lot because I have a very specific fan base with Ross King artist music. So I don't mind that for that. But in order to be a CCM songwriter or a sync songwriter, you got to you got to just be writing hooks, period, man. Like something that's great. Does that make sense? Like, and that was really helpful to me to be pushed. Because my friends were the ones telling me that it was good.
We're now at the lovely place where the roles get to turn if you'd like them.
Yeah.
You've sat through lots of my curiosity and answered a lot of my questions. Do you have anything that you'd like to ask me? Feel free to say no. You can also have multiple things.
I'm trying not to like flex some like philosophically challenging, life-altering question that you don't have time to answer, or you've never thought of. But that's kind of how my brain works, So I would probably ask you something like, one thing I describe to my songwriting students is the idea of the reasonable dream, and what I mean is, you can have a dream, and it might be, that Hillsongs does my song at Bridgestone. Okay, well that's a dream. What's your reasonable dream? And your reasonable dream is often something like, I just want to make money in my songwriting. I just want to, reach more people. I'm going to perform a song at a coffee house for the first time. Whatever. It's not like it's not important. It's just maybe for you, it's possible, but it's still going to take some work and some favor, and some things have to fall into place. What is your reasonable dream for Hymnal?
If I'm being honest, we've already accomplished it, which has allowed for other dreams.
All right.
In the beginning, my reasonable dream for Hymnal was just to connect people to each other.
Okay.
And then that was satisfied, which allowed me to have another dream, which was to do it in person.
Okay.
One of the challenges that I present to our team is that I dream in real time. And so that means that no retreat is ever identically the same.
Mm.
And that's because I meet new friends, I see other things, and I'm like, how do we incorporate them? Or how do we elevate this?
Yeah.
And so, like in Louisville, when we had the retreat recently, it was like, how do we incorporate really good food intentionally? And some of the CCM or artists that I know who are indie, how do we incorporate and allow them to display what they do so that the people that are coming to the retreats can also experience it? So it elevated the retreat. And so I'm at a space where 90% of the dreams I've had so far have kind of come true.
That's great.
I mean, you say it's great. The team goes, oh, he has new dreams now.
Sure.
And so, for instance, this podcast that we're on is the realization of a dream, because we've been filming pieces of this for a year while it's like kind of just in my brain getting processed.
Yeah.
And I would say this week specifically, we are actually realizing part of a dream where a church is bringing us in to St. Louis to write with their team, and then we're leading worship on the weekend for their church. And so I would say that like almost every stage of my dreaming, if we have dream stages, God has been wildly faithful to allow us to like step into them.
Yeah.
Now, that also does mean that we've stepped into some spaces and been like, no, that's the wrong door.
Right.
Let's go the opposite way.
Yeah, but that's what we were talking about earlier. That taught you something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I would say God's been wildly kind to my dreaming.
That's great.
The shadow side would be I didn't realize how much internal work would happen along the way.
Okay.
I didn't realize how much of myself I would encounter that God was like, oh, we're going to work this out while this dream is happening.
Yeah.
You know? And so I would say it's both been like mind-blowingly awesome while also internally gut-wrenching sometime of like, oh, there's so many layers to die to yourself along the journey that I never would have thought possible.
Right. Yeah. I mean, in order to create, honestly, you have to access pain. Almost certain. I mean, there's almost no way to really, if you live any span of life and create for any span of life, and one of your goals is to create honestly, you're going to have to access and then sort of like publicly process hurt, you know, and insecurity and inadequacy and
the list goes on.
Yeah,
and on.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I do, yeah. But I mean, that's, you know, I think the thing that people the creatives have to keep in mind, there are people in the world who go through things and don't know how to process them except just other stuff. We have a way to process pain that other people can't. Songwriting is a great, great gift in the sense that I'm going through right now the hardest thing I've ever gone through, and there is no second place. And I had seasons where I've told you I'm going through the hardest thing I've ever been through, and those things were nothing compared to this, what we're going through. And I can process it with art, and I don't know how to even start to thank God for that, right? And I think that's part of what, you know, what you're talking about is that you have to kind of deal with yourself, but that will pull the circle back around, and you will create with that, and you'll do better ministry with that. You will be more open and more teachable because of that, which will lead to more songs, and you know. So yeah, I totally get it.
Ross, my friend, thank you
for
the gift of your time.
No, thank you.
Thank you to your family, specifically your wife, because this season of life is,
thank you.
You know, she's got some things
I'm glad
going.
I'm glad to do it.
But love you, my friend. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Rejoice, for the light has come, and he is clothed in glory. Come alive, for the King is here. All the earth is responding. All honor and power, we praise you forever.